Surely Mom and Dad would prefer to live with me rather than you, Emma, my pregnant sister-in-law Karen declared, affectionately cradling her belly. After all, you can't even give them grandkids. Since we're moving here, it's only fair that you and your husband find a new place. I responded with a simple, okay, although Karen seemed quite content with my quick acquiescence. Deep down, I felt a sense of relief at the prospect of finally breaking free from our strained relationship. My name is Emma, and I've been married to Scott. Together, we've been grappling with the challenges of infertility. Having spent years working as a child care worker, my love for children ran deep within me. So when I discovered that conceiving was proving difficult after marrying Scott, it shook me to my core. I even confided in Scott, expressing my fear that he might regret marrying me, considering our struggle. With his gentle demeanor, Scott reassured me, saying, "I didn't marry you for children. I married you because I love you. Whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together." His words resonated with me, and we embarked on the journey of fertility treatments hand in hand. Reflecting on it now, I realize how fortunate I am to have such an exceptional husband by my side. Initially, I attempted to juggle fertility treatments with my job, but the demands of shift work made it increasingly challenging. As the treatments progressed, my emotions became more fragile, often leading to tears at the sight of children, a stark reminder of my own uncertain path to motherhood. Recognizing the strain it placed on both myself and my colleagues, and recalling Scott's suggestion that I could explore being a stay-at-home wife, I made the difficult decision to resign from my job. Now, amidst fertility treatments, I embrace the role of a full-time homemaker. Karen, Scott's younger sister, who was expecting her fifth child, learned of our struggles. Despite the sensitivity of my situation, Karen would visit with her 4 children in tow, oblivious to the emotional toll it sometimes took on me. With a casual tone, she'd remark, "Emma, you're at home now, aren't you? Why not lend me a hand with the kids? You used to work in childcare, didn't you? Take care of them for me, will you?" And with that, she'd leave her children in my care to indulge in her beauty treatments and manicures. Whenever I mentioned that it wasn't appropriate for me to babysit, Karen would dismissively retort, "In a society where people aren't having enough children, isn't someone like me, who's raising kids, more admirable? You who can't even have children should just do as I say." It was frustrating to care for someone else's children without compensation, even if she was my sister-in-law. Despite her abrasive demeanor, I couldn't ignore the longing in her children's eyes for their mother's presence. Each time they asked when she returned, it tugged at my heartstrings. I wondered the same thing myself. Naturally, I shared my concerns with Scott, including how Karen was leaving her children with me while she indulged in her beauty treatments. Scott, seething with anger, confronted Karen over the phone, only to be met with dismissiveness. "Emma should be thrilled to be around kids since she can't have any of her own," Karen retorted. "After all, she used to work with children, so what's the big deal?" Scott, undeterred, approached Karen's husband Rob, hoping for some understanding. However, Rob echoed Karen's sentiments, insisting that our assistance was necessary. "Our kids seem to enjoy Emma's company, and it's a big help to us," Rob stated. "Once Emma gets pregnant, we won't impose on her anymore. But until then, we'd appreciate her support. Karen is exhausted from caring for the children, and as a homemaker, Emma should be able to pitch in." Scott had assured me that if Karen ever showed up uninvited, I had full authority to send her packing. However, her 4 children had a habit of darting straight to the back room without so much as a hello the moment they entered our home. Karen, in her usual fashion, would simply declare, "Well then, you're in charge today," before hastily departing, leaving her kids behind before I could voice any objections. One day, Karen broke her usual routine by unexpectedly stepping inside our house. Typically, she dropped off her children and swiftly left, so I was taken aback when she inquired, "When are you moving to the new house? Have you picked out any designs or anything?" Scott and I were in the process of constructing a new duplex to reside with his parents. With the house nearing completion, we were preparing for the imminent move. Despite being aware of my struggles with infertility, my in-laws had never uttered a single disparaging remark. My mother-in-law, in particular, had been a source of immense support, once reassuring me, "There are countless happy families out there without children." It was a sentiment that had been a lifeline for me. Now, as my in-laws grew older and began to experience various ailments, we realized the importance of living together before they required full-time care. Hence, Scott made the decision to build the duplex. It was a rare occasion when Karen showed genuine interest in the duplex, so I eagerly shared the anticipated images and blueprints with her. Though Karen seldom visited her parents' house, the prospect of the home they would soon occupy seemed to capture her attention. She probed about the number of rooms and the amount of sunlight the house received, to which I assured her there were no concerns. When queried about our moving date, Karen simply responded with a curt, "I see," before abruptly departing, leaving her children behind. A sense of unease lingered within me, but at the time, I brushed it off. Eventually, the decision was made for us to move into the two-family home. Shortly thereafter, my in-laws settled in, and our life together with Scott's parents commenced seamlessly. Living under one roof proved to be harmonious, and we felt truly fortunate to have such kind-hearted in-laws. Then, unexpectedly, Karen made an unannounced visit one day, accompanied by her 4 children. Without so much as a glance at her kids, she turned to me and uttered, "Hey Emma, we need to talk." As my in-laws, who hadn't seen their grandchildren in quite some time, were being overwhelmed with attention, I found myself abruptly escorted out to the hallway. Amidst my concerns about whether my in-laws, who had been lamenting their recent back problems, could manage the energetic kids, Karen dropped a bombshell. "Hey, why would you and Scott vacate this house?" I was caught off guard by her unexpected words, but Karen forged ahead, seemingly unconcerned with my reaction. "Undoubtedly, Mom and Dad would prefer to reside with me rather than with you, incapable of granting them grandchildren. After all, I'm their true daughter, bound by blood," Karen declared haughtily, her hand caressing her burgeoning belly. It was evident that Karen's scheme involved moving in with my in-laws and relying on them for childcare. "See how thrilled Mom and Dad are to dote on their grandchildren," Karen remarked, gesturing towards my struggling in-laws who were attempting to manage their lively brood of grandkids. Despite my futile attempts to reason with Karen, her determination remained unyielding. Each passing moment only fueled my simmering resentment towards her for ridiculing my infertility and imposing her children on my compassionate in-laws. After much contemplation, a solution dawned on me, and with a resigned nod, I uttered, "Fine, we'll find another place." Karen eagerly set the timeline for our departure and their subsequent occupancy, leaving her children behind once more. Yet amidst the chaos, I found a sense of relief, viewing this as an opportunity to sever ties with Karen. As time elapsed, the day arrived for Karen's family to move into the duplex that Scott had painstakingly built. Wondering if the transition had been smooth, my phone suddenly rang. It was Karen. As I picked up the phone, Karen's voice pierced through with an edge of fury. "What on earth is going on? Why hasn't your stuff been cleared out yet? There's no space for our belongings. And where are Mom and Dad supposed to go?" Scott, his parents, and I had vacated the two-family residence, but some furniture remained behind. Karen's agitation was palpable, prompting my reply. "The decision was sudden, so we've only partially moved out for now. Your parents are staying with us." "Unbelievable." Karen's retort came swift and sharp. "I find it outrageous that you and your husband have taken it upon yourselves to move into the house Scott built without consulting us. It's equally outrageous to offload the kids onto us and gallivant around town, despite our repeated warnings about the challenges of caring for them. That's beside the point for now. Can I just dispose of any remaining furniture that I don't care for?" Karen inquired impatiently. "If you're truly intending to move in, feel free to do so. But are you absolutely certain about this?" I questioned, a hint of skepticism lacing my words. "What do you mean?" Karen snapped irritably. It was then that I dropped the bombshell. "Can you and your husband manage the mortgage for that house? It's a substantial investment, given it's a two-family home." By that juncture, I had already spun a web of lies. Even my apparent agreement to their moving in was fabricated. There was no way I could entertain Karen's notion of seizing control over the duplex that my husband Scott had painstakingly constructed. It's only natural that the furniture remains, considering Scott, his parents, and I are currently enjoying a vacation at Yellowstone National Park. In reality, the house had been entirely paid for with the combined savings of Scott, myself, and his parents. There was no mortgage to speak of, but the fabrication served its purpose in rattling Karen. Scott and his parents were in on the plan. When Karen demanded to speak with Scott, he adopted a mischievous grin and echoed my deception, claiming there was still a mortgage. Upon hearing this over the phone, Karen reportedly broke down in tears, unable to fathom the financial strain. She ultimately chose to retreat to her previous residence with her husband, Rob, and their children, after Scott assured her she could still withdraw and that we were also returning home. Upon our return home, narrowly averting Karen's attempted takeover, she wasted no time in launching into a tirade. "You never disclosed there was still a mortgage. Why keep us in the dark?" Karen's voice reverberated with anger as she directed her accusations at us. With a nonchalant shrug, I retorted, "Because you never inquired," causing Karen's face to flush an even deeper shade of red. The children were thrilled at the thought of this becoming our home. "You shattered their dreams as well. Maybe your inability to conceive is punishment for your negligence. You owe it to them to properly care for the kids. Even if it's just playing with them, it's better than doing nothing." Karen's words stung with venom. Listening to Karen's venomous tirade, my typically reserved mother-in-law rose from her seat and delivered a resounding slap across Karen's cheek. Taken aback by my typically serene mother-in-law's unexpected outburst, she turned her attention to Karen with a cutting edge in her tone. "You can't even handle the simple task of playing with the kids? Were you planning to move into this duplex just to unload your childcare responsibilities onto us? I was willing to lend a hand if you were struggling to raise your children alone, but who would want to assist a daughter who shirks her parenting duties and acts entitled? Leave this house immediately and never return." A note of desperation crept into Karen's voice as she protested. "Aren't you on my side, Mom? I'm your real daughter, aren't I?" In response to Karen's tearful plea, my usually reserved father-in-law found his tone heavy with disappointment. "It's precisely because you're a real daughter that your behavior is so disgraceful. I feel remorseful for raising such a self-centered daughter. Scott has informed me of your cruel remarks towards Emma regarding her struggles with infertility. That's an unforgivable act." Karen's glare intensified towards me, but I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for her, knowing she would be facing her struggles alone from now on. With a solemn expression, I opened the front door for her. "As both your mother and father have stated, it's time for you to leave. I won't be assisting with childcare any longer, so please take responsibility for your own." "You're all heartless monsters," Karen lashed out before departing the house in tears. From that moment on, she never crossed the threshold of our home again. When Karen arrived at our house, Scott was away at work. Later, he received a call from her, but her words were barely intelligible through her uncontrollable sobs. It became apparent that her family was facing dire financial troubles. Karen had been indulging in beauty treatments and manicures, while Rod had been squandering money on lottery tickets. With their savings dwindling, Karen saw moving into the duplex Scott had built as a solution to avoid paying rent and utilities. When she turned to Scott, who earned significantly more than the average income, for financial assistance, he couldn't overlook her past mockery of my infertility. Scott advised Karen to cut back on beauty treatments and lottery tickets as a solution, but she tearfully refused. He couldn't bring himself to financially assist such an arrogant individual, even if she was his blood relative. As their financial situation worsened, Rod had to resort to taking a second job to cover their expenses after exhausting their funds on lottery tickets. Similarly, Karen had to forgo her regular beauty treatments due to a lack of funds. Once polished and composed, Karen was now almost unrecognizable after months of financial strain. It was only when Scott pointed her out that I realized it was indeed Karen. Yet, despite Karen's challenges, her children remained vibrant and content in her care, which was a relief. And then, a miraculous twist occurred. I discovered that I was pregnant with twins. However, even amidst the joyous news, tears welled in my eyes when the doctor confirmed it. Scott, by my side, also shed tears of happiness as we shared in the overwhelming emotion. My in-laws were equally ecstatic, finally seeing the realization of our long-held dream for a child. Though I hadn't voiced it to Scott, I couldn't help but wonder if the release from the stress caused by Karen had played a part in my pregnancy. Reflecting on the unwavering support of Scott and my in-laws, who chose to stand by me rather than Karen, fills me with immense gratitude. It's because of their unwavering support that I've been blessed with two precious lives. Now, all I can do is hope fervently that the babies growing within me will be born healthy. My name is Melissa, and I've been married to Cedric for nearly a decade. We're both in our 40s and don't have children. We live together in a cozy home, with Cedric working a standard white-collar job while I manage a part-time position. Thanks to our combined incomes, we enjoy a comfortable financial cushion. Our marriage has been smooth sailing so far, with hardly any major disagreements. Lately, however, things have become a bit more complicated. The change began when I inherited a condo from my father, who recently passed away. I've been advised to move into this new condo and relinquish my childhood home. My father had purchased the two-bedroom condo for himself when we got married. It's not overly large, but it's charming and stylish. The condo Cedric and I currently call home is actually my childhood residence. My parents and I lived in a four-bedroom condo till I married, at which point my father gifted it to me. After leaving for college, returning to this home filled with memories was a source of great joy. My mother passed away while I was in college, so my father lived alone in the family home. When Cedric and I were preparing to marry, my father expressed his hope that we would be comfortable in the condo. I initially thought he was hinting at moving in with us, but he firmly declined. He likely didn't want to intrude on our new life together. After my father passed away, I inherited the two-bedroom condo where he had been living. Luckily, I was able to quickly find a tenant and secure a lease. I assumed our lives would continue as they had before. However, a year later, my mother-in-law made an unexpected proposal during a visit. She suggested, "Why don't we let Jasmine and her kids move into the four-bedroom condo? It's getting cramped in their current place." Jasmine, Cedric's sister, is a single mother with 3 young children. They're currently living in a two-bedroom apartment, which I could imagine is becoming quite tight for their growing family. However, my feelings towards Jasmine had never been warm. Each time we crossed paths, she seemed to look down on me for not having children. Cedric and I married just before I turned 30, and even then, Jasmine seemed intent on one-upping me. Her attitude only worsened as I reached that milestone. She would say things like, "You're 30 and still childless. Isn't your life over?" The comments didn't stop there. After my father's passing, she made a particularly cutting remark. "It's such a shame you didn't give your father the chance to meet his grandchild." Despite Jasmine being 3 years older, she often felt more like a younger sister-in-law than a senior. I genuinely wanted to maintain a good relationship, given her family connection, and I tried to make an effort. But after her hurtful comments, I found myself wanting to keep as much distance from Jasmine as possible. I don't have any siblings, and my father was my only close family. Amid the mental and physical exhaustion from losing him, Jasmine's cold words struck me deeply, leaving me with a lasting negative impression. I hadn't seen Jasmine since shortly after my father's passing, so I was taken aback when my mother-in-law made her proposal. She suggested that Jasmine and her kids move into the four-bedroom condo, offering to cover the rent at just $500 a month. Her expression seemed to convey, "Isn't that a fantastic deal?" I was stunned. While our condo isn't brand new, it has been recently renovated and is well maintained. With good public transport and proximity to a mall, its rental value would surely exceed $2,000. $500? I was taken aback by the audacity of suggesting such a low rent for a four-bedroom condo. Whether they're unaware of the current market rates or not, it felt incredibly presumptuous. I didn't respond right away, which seemed to lead my mother-in-law to believe I was in agreement, and she continued with her plan. "You have a condo that you're renting out now, right? You could live there instead. Just don't renew the lease. Once you're moved out, Jasmine and her family can move in." "How long is the lease for?" she asked. Cedric, ever the agreeable one, chimed in, "Oh, that's a great idea. The condo where my father lived is modern and stylish, and it's perfect for just the two of us." It felt like the conversation was slipping away from me, so I interjected, "Aren't we supposed to be living here together?" The reality is, my in-laws are currently in a single-family home that's largely vacant, with just my father-in-law and mother-in-law residing there. Cedric and Jasmine's rooms remain unused. If Jasmine's family needed more space, wouldn't it make more sense for them to move into my in-laws' home first, rather than asking us to make a move? It turns out, though, that if Jasmine's family moved into my in-laws' home, the children would have to switch schools. They would need to buy new school uniforms and other items, which they considered a waste of money. I couldn't directly refuse my mother-in-law's suggestion about renting the condo to Jasmine, so I said, "This is the home where I was born and raised. It's not something I can just leave behind easily." We ended the conversation and left my in-laws' house without saying anything more. Given that my mother-in-law mentioned, "I'm not saying you have to decide right away," it's clear she hasn't given up on the idea. When I returned to the condo, I confronted Cedric, saying, "This is my family home, you know. How can you agree to leave it so easily?" Cedric looked taken aback, as if he hadn't realized how upset I was. "But your family home is just a condo," he remarked. His lack of an apology was deeply disappointing. Cedric, having grown up in a single-family home, seems to believe that a true family home must be a standalone house. He doesn't seem to grasp why I consider a condo to be my family home. While our different backgrounds might explain his perspective, a simple apology would have been appreciated. My frustration boiled over, and I raised my voice. "The condo is my family home. Stop making decisions about it without consulting me." Cedric seemed irritated when I referred to it as my condo. "What do you mean, your condo? We've been married for 10 years. It's our condo," he shouted back. If he hadn't dismissed my feelings about the condo being my family home or resisted renting it to my sister-in-law, I might have been more receptive to him calling it our condo. But given the situation, his words felt deeply unsettling. Despite numerous discussions, we remained at an impasse. Cedric, who rarely considered my perspective, labeled me as stingy, stubborn, and malicious. We both dug in our heels, and for months we were unable to reach any resolution. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law kept checking in, asking, "Have you given any more thought to our previous discussion?" My patience was wearing thin with both my mother-in-law and Cedric, who refused to support me. Then one day, I received an unexpected text from Jasmine, who was clearly frustrated with the lack of progress. "You don't have kids, so a 2-bedroom condo should be sufficient. Living in a 4-bedroom condo is a luxury for just the two of you. Just move out." I hadn't heard from Jasmine since my mother-in-law first brought up the condo issue, so this message came as a shock. There were no polite requests or appeals, just a direct command to vacate. Who does she think she is? Reading Jasmine's text made me feel foolish for trying to keep things civil up to this point. As I reflected on the situation, the thought of divorce kept creeping into my mind. Despite my efforts to control my emotions, I realized I was at the end of my rope. I visited the courthouse to pick up divorce papers and then made a call to a specific office. A few days later, I went to the county clerk's office to get copies of the property deeds. To my relief, I confirmed that both the condo I live in and the one I'm renting out are solely in my name. With this confirmation, I decided to give my husband one final chance. "I've told you repeatedly that I don't want to rent this condo to Jasmine. It's my family home, and I can't bear the thought of renting it to someone who has belittled me and said hurtful things. I need you to tell her not to count on this place." Cedric's expression was one of clear irritation, as it always was whenever I brought up the issue. Despite having shared everything Jasmine had said to me during our arguments, Cedric still didn't understand. He even remarked, "But Jasmine's point isn't entirely wrong either." Looking back, I should have divorced him right then and there. It would have spared me so much distress. But I lacked the courage to leave someone I had been with for 10 years or to face being alone as I approached 40. Now, things are different. If Cedric rejects my proposal this time, I'm ready to say goodbye. I've made up my mind, and this is my plea. You're so reluctant to leave your family home, but you're only tormenting Jasmine out of spite. It's your own behavior that invites disdain, and honestly, you're exaggerating. The things you've been told aren't as terrible as you're making them out to be. I can't understand why you're being so spiteful." Cedric looked at me with confusion, completely unaware of my resolve. I was at a loss for how Cedric could never support me, no matter how many times I needed it. I told him maybe we just can't understand each other anymore. "Then please fill this out," I said, handing him the divorce papers. I expected him to panic or become agitated, but Cedric merely sneered and smirked at the sight of the papers. "Seriously? Do you think threatening divorce will make me back down?" he retorted. Cedric seemed to believe I wasn't serious about the divorce. I thought to myself, this isn't a threat. I could have managed to get along with Jasmine as my sister-in-law, but now it feels impossible. The same goes for your mother and you. I can't trust you anymore, and there's no love left. It's over. Pack your things and leave now. Unaware of my resolve regarding the divorce, Cedric left. My anger surged, and I expressed my frustration. "Jasmine and my mom don't actually dislike you. Can't you see this is all your fault for only thinking about yourself?" Cedric, feeling that our conversation was going in circles, tried to argue back. I cut him off. "Enough. We've reached an impasse. You don't want to understand me, and I don't want to understand you. Divorce is the only option. If you don't sign these papers, I'll file for mediation." I spoke with a cold finality. Cedric responded with a growl, kicked the wall in frustration, and stormed out. He didn't sign the papers or take any of his belongings. He seemed intent on just leaving the situation behind. A few days later, as I had anticipated, Cedric returned. With a look of guilt on his face, he asked, "What should I do?" Did he really think that a display of remorse would make me reconsider? There's nothing more to discuss. Everything is already decided. If you agree to the divorce, sign the papers. If not, I'll file for mediation. Also, I've decided to sell this condo. Yes, I had made up my mind to sell my family home. On the day I went to court to get the divorce papers, I contacted Mr. Allen, a close friend of my father's. I had known Mr. Allen since childhood, and he had been very supportive, even attending my father's memorial service. He had given me his business card, offering his help if I ever needed it. His card listed his law firm, where he worked as a lawyer. Mr. Allen had been instrumental in helping me navigate my father's inheritance by introducing me to a judicial scrivener. When I consulted him about the current situation, he was supportive and provided valuable advice on checking the condo's ownership and preparing for potential complications in the divorce. His guidance gave me the strength to take a firm stand. After Cedric left the house, I made the decision to sell the condo. I reached out to a real estate agent and instructed them to list the property. I also informed Mr. Allen about the failed conversation with Cedric, how he had refused to sign the divorce papers, and how he had left without resolving anything. I asked Mr. Allen for assistance if the situation escalated to mediation. When Cedric learned that the condo was being sold, his eyes widened and his previously indifferent demeanor shifted to a menacing tone. "What? So, after all your talk about this being your family home, now you're selling it? Clearly, it wasn't that important to you. You could have rented it to Jasmine if it meant so little. You're just being stingy." Cedric's outburst didn't bother me anymore. I gave him a cold stare, which made him visibly tense. Yet it was clear he wasn't ready to back down. Cedric challenged me, saying, "You can't just decide to sell it on your own. The title might be in your name, but when we divorce, there should be a division of property. This condo was our shared property, wasn't it?" I met his defiance with a smirk and replied, "Too bad. This condo was put in my name by my father just before I got married. Anything I owned before marriage isn't subject to property division. I've already confirmed this with my lawyer." The parting with the family home was difficult. I didn't want to let it become a source of further bad memories. After consulting with Mr. Allen and confirming that the condo wouldn't be part of the property division, I was able to move forward with the decision to sell it. When Cedric learned the truth, his attitude shifted dramatically, and he started clinging to me in a desperate and unseemly manner. Cedric said, "I was wrong. There's no need to rent the condo to Jasmine. It's your precious family home. Are you sure you want to sell it? Since you're still living here, you haven't sold it yet, right? Let's not sell it. We can start over. I'll speak to Jasmine and my mother. Let's not proceed with the divorce or the sale." At that moment, I questioned why I had been with him for 10 years. I felt a deep sense of self-disgust. "Don't try to sweet-talk me now. You never supported me, no matter how many times we talked. There's no chance for us to start over. Goodbye. Pack your things and leave as soon as possible." Cedric continued to resist the divorce, leading us to mediation. Eventually, I was able to finalize the separation and part ways with him. Now, I'm free. I initially feared that being single would be daunting, but it's actually quite liberating. I've purchased a new 2-bedroom condo and am embracing my life on my own terms. My name is Susan, and I'm married to Mark, who has a younger sister he adores. There's a significant age gap between them, and Mark has always been particularly protective of her, especially since she was quite delicate when she was younger. Unfortunately, it seems my in-laws have indulged her every whim, and she grew up with a strong sense of entitlement. When Mark and I got married, things quickly became difficult. She caused quite a commotion at our wedding, demanding to wear a dress of her own and insisting on cutting the cake with Mark. At one point, she even tried to persuade our parents to call off the wedding. Despite the drama, I was young and optimistic, believing that as long as she wasn't around too much, everything would be fine. In hindsight, I wonder if I should have thought it through more carefully. Now, she's dropped by and announced, "I'm just here to hang out. Let me stay the night, and tomorrow you can show me around," she said with an air of entitlement. She lives in the next city over, doesn't she? And we both have work tomorrow. Not to mention we weren't prepared for an overnight guest. It's not a big deal. I'll take a day off and show her around, Mark replied. It seemed that his devotion to his sister had no bounds. Even after we were married, his attentiveness didn't wane. Every weekend she would come over, join us for lunch and dinner, and then stay the night. Once, she stumbled upon an estimate I had tucked away for a trip and said, "You're going on a trip, big bro. I want to come too." Mark simply responded, "Well, if she wants to join, I'll cover the costs." So she ended up tagging along on our trip, which infuriated me. It sparked a major argument. After she left, I said, "I can't believe you. The estimate was for our honeymoon." "But you shouldn't have left it where she could find it," he retorted. "And how is the inside of my private desk supposed to be an easy place to find?" "She managed to find it, so it's too late to change that now." "Then we're canceling the trip." "But you were so looking forward to it." "Well, not anymore. She's going to be really disappointed." "Fine, why don't you two go instead? The estimate was for 2 people after all." "You're right, we'll do that." And true to his word, Mark went on the trip with just his sister, covering all the expenses himself. It was the only time I seriously considered divorce, but I hesitated, thinking there needed to be something more significant to justify such a step. When they returned, she handed me a pile of laundry and said, "That was a great trip. Here's your laundry. Why should I wash your clothes? You're the sister-in-law, so you should be doing it." I was baffled by her logic, but this was just the way things were. "I wish you'd speak up, dear," I said to Mark. "No, Amanda's too delicate to handle these things. If she's so delicate she can't manage basic chores, maybe she shouldn't be traveling." My sarcastic remark was met with, "Well, you should have come with us. It's your fault for being stubborn and not joining us." Suddenly, I found myself at the center of the blame. While it's common for a newlywed couple to prefer not having the sister-in-law join them on their honeymoon, Mark and Amanda seemed to think I was in the wrong for not wanting to be part of their super fun trip. I must have missed out, as they cheerfully recounted their adventure, leaving me feeling completely excluded. Amanda had always been close to Mark, and after several years of marriage, she finally tied the knot herself. Her husband lived far away, so we were relieved, hoping that the distance would reduce her frequent visits. Once Amanda was married, her visits ceased, and for the first time since our marriage, we enjoyed a peaceful period. That Amanda had a baby girl, Mark and I celebrated the new arrival, thinking we might finally achieve a more balanced relationship with our in-laws. But just when we thought we had a handle on things, Mark brought Amanda and our new niece home, disrupting our newfound tranquility. Starting today, we're going to take care of Amanda and the baby. We'll cover all their needs, so I hope you're okay with that." "What? Why? What happened to her husband?" "He was having an affair, and when Amanda confronted him, he became violent. She had to leave, and now she's planning to divorce him but doesn't have anywhere to stay." "Well, we have spare rooms. I thought it would be a good solution." "This is just temporary, right?" "No, it's permanent. Amanda has never worked a day in her life. We can support her for as long as needed." I felt overwhelmed. I knew Mark was devoted to his sister, but this was beyond what I had anticipated. "What does Amanda think about all this?" "I can't work because of my health, and I've been a stay-at-home mom. This is the only way I can live." "So, you don't plan on leaving? You want to just abandon a single mother? Besides, you don't have any kids of your own. Consider this a trial run." I couldn't help but laugh. Up until now, I had thought divorce would be too complicated, but the realization that this situation was far more troublesome made me see it differently. Laughter bubbled up uncontrollably. "What's so funny? You're starting to freak me out. Have you lost your mind?" "Maybe I have." "Well, it is what it is. Just deal with it." "Fine, you two can use my room." Seeing my apparent agreement, Mark looked visibly relieved, but I added, "Fine, but in that case, I'm getting a divorce." He was taken aback. "What? If you divorce, you'll free up a room, and you can take care of Amanda and her daughter all you want." "Yes, if I leave, my room will be available, and Amanda can continue being the housewife as she has been. I'll find someone else to handle the housework. It's basically the same as supporting me. I'll just be moving out." "So, who will take care of the housework then?" "Amanda, since you're a housewife, why don't you handle the housework? Isn't that what being a housewife is for?" "Why should I? I didn't ask for this." "Well, neither did I, so we're both stuck in this situation, aren't we?" With that, I headed to my room and started packing my things. So you expect me to support us all on my own? Absolutely. Didn't you claim you could manage everything when you clearly can't? Faced with my decision, Mark's expression grew strained. It seems you're right, but I'm done with this for now. We can sort out the details later. With that, I left the house in the middle of the night. I checked into a hotel and called my parents. They were startled by the late night call, but once I explained the situation, they agreed I could come home the next day. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls from Mark and Amanda, but the noise was overwhelming, so I turned it off and went to bed. When I woke up, my voicemail and inbox were flooded with messages. The general content was, "Sorry for the sudden change. I'm waiting for your call. Apologies for the urgent request, but I have nowhere to go since I've also left. Please come back and hear me out. Stop sulking and return. I won't be responsible for your belongings. You're my brother's wife, so you better not defy me. Come back soon and make dinner." I received threatening emails, some with violent language. I copied and printed them out at a convenience store on my way to my parents' house. When I arrived, my parents greeted me with concern. "Why did you endure this for so long? You should have come back sooner." "Absolutely. You're going to divorce him, right?" My parents were even angrier than I had been. I had feared being scolded or judged for considering divorce over such an issue, but their support was overwhelming. The tension I had been holding onto broke, and I began to cry uncontrollably. I recounted everything that had happened, explaining how my breaking point was reached when my husband brought home my sister-in-law and niece. They advised me to contact my in-laws first. Since leaving, I hadn't heard anything from them, which made me wonder why my sister-in-law hadn't returned to her own parents' house despite being cheated on. I decided to address this when I visited my in-laws. To my surprise, my sister-in-law's husband, Christopher, was also there. I explained that my sister-in-law and niece were currently staying with my husband, that I had refused to accept this situation, and that I have fled to my parents' house for refuge. "I see, so Amanda said that. Is that not true? I didn't expect Christopher to be involved, but it turns out Amanda is the one having the affair. We even had evidence to prove it. I understand now, especially after hearing from Christopher. It makes sense why Amanda wouldn't go to her in-laws' house. I see. We spoiled her, but I didn't expect things to escalate this much. I'm really sorry for the trouble this has caused you, Susan." Then a thought struck me. I wondered if my husband was aware of the truth and had brought Amanda home deliberately. Actually, I think my husband might have known about the affair and brought her home on purpose. I believe that's the case. Amanda frequently mentioned she was going to visit your husband on the days she was actually having an affair, and we even received photos of them dining together. Since you weren't in those photos, we became suspicious and discovered the truth. It seemed my sister-in-law had been using my husband as an alibi. With this in mind, I decided to confront the two of them, who still appeared to be avoiding my in-laws. I sent a single email to my husband, reflecting on Amanda's situation and feeling that I should give her one more chance to explain herself. The message read, "I'll be coming home tonight. Please wait for me." With that decided, I planned to return to the house that evening, accompanied by Amanda's husband and my in-laws. I had Amanda's husband wait at the front door and ring the bell. As soon as I rang, I could hear the sound of someone rushing to answer. When the door opened, I stepped inside and said, "I'm home." Both Amanda and my husband came into view. "You're late. Are you going to make dinner? I'm starving." "Finally, you're back." The house was so cluttered that there was barely any space to move. It was hard to believe it had only been left unattended for a single day. My mother-in-law rubbed her temples in frustration, my father-in-law's face flushed with anger, and both my sister-in-law and husband looked pale and uneasy. I couldn't help but find the contrast amusing. Why are Mom and Dad here, and why is Christopher with them? Well, I figured it would be too much to handle alone. Don't you think it's better to have some help from your parents? I wasn't informed that Mom and Dad would be here, or that Christopher would be coming. You're causing trouble even for your sister-in-law. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? But having an affair is a different matter. What? Amanda, you were cheating. Feigning surprise, I received an irritated glare from my sister-in-law. Did you know about this? I turned to my husband, who was mumbling something incoherent but didn't deny the accusation. It seemed clear he was aware of the affair. So, you knew about the affair, lied about it, and expected me to take care of Amanda. Well, since she's family, you would trust Amanda, wouldn't you? You were trying to make me handle this. But if she had gone to her in-laws' house, you would have definitely blamed Amanda. To me, she's a stranger, I replied. But I wasn't cheating. I was with my brother. I've spoken with Christopher and seen the photos, and it's clear that you two were dining together. We haven't been out for meals in a while. No, that's not it. I didn't know about the affair. She just asked me to take pictures to create an alibi. So please don't divorce me. Wait, brother. It seemed he realized too late that he had misspoken. My husband, who had admitted to fabricating an alibi, looked regretful. With that confession, the alibi is useless. Your parents heard everything. No, it was my brother's fault. It's too late. There's plenty of evidence beyond the alibi. I'm going through with the divorce. No way. My mother-in-law broke down into tearful sobs, while my father-in-law, his fists clenched and trembling with barely contained rage, looked ready to lash out but struggled to restrain himself. Then they turned to me and bowed their heads in apology. We will take full responsibility for this situation. We will care for Sarah until everything is resolved. Susan, we are truly sorry for all the trouble. Amanda, whose alibi had completely fallen apart, sank to her knees, visibly defeated. My husband, who seemed to have resigned himself to the situation, stood motionless. Following the upheaval, Amanda and her husband divorced, as did my husband and me. When we finalized our divorce, I submitted the IC recorder that had been borrowed from Amanda's husband. I received a modest alimony settlement, bringing my brief marriage to an end. The custody of my niece was granted to Amanda's ex-husband, which brought me a sense of relief. It seemed Amanda and her ex were now living under their parents' supervision, stripped of their former luxurious and arrogant lifestyle, and were facing a more difficult existence. Since then, I've occasionally stayed in touch with Amanda's ex-husband and had the chance to visit my niece. During one of these visits, I thanked him. Thank you for everything. He bowed his head and replied, No, I didn't do anything special. I waved my hand dismissively, but Amanda's ex-husband shook his head and explained, Actually, I was worried about whether I could secure custody of my daughter. Custody is generally easier for the mother to obtain, and fathers often have a lower chance unless there's a substantial reason. Even though Amanda cheated, she's still young, and making her own decisions is challenging. However, I believed I could win custody if I could prove the affair and show that Amanda, who was involved, would be living with us at my wife's parents' house. It seemed that whether or not my husband's involvement in fabricating the alibi could be confirmed was crucial for custody. Since I had acknowledged the alibi, it helped secure his custody claim. I'm relieved. It looks like Sarah will be safe and well cared for. It appears my niece will be living with Amanda's ex-husband from now on. I'm preparing to move back to living alone, as I can't rely on my parents forever. In hindsight, I should have trusted my instincts and called off the marriage earlier. I've had enough. It's been 6 months since my in-laws moved into our home, promising it would be a temporary arrangement. However, they show no signs of leaving. Instead of contributing, they avoid work and constantly ask us for money. Our savings are dwindling, yet my husband, Tony, seems reluctant to ask them to leave. Whenever I glance up, I catch my father-in-law and mother-in-law smirking at me, pushing me to the brink of my patience. If they think they can mock me without consequences, they're sorely mistaken. My name is Anna. I'm 35 years old and have been married to Tony for 5 years. We met at our favorite bar and got married after dating for 18 months. We've faced our share of challenges, but overall, life has been good. Tony, what time do you think you'll be home today? I asked, trying to keep my frustration in check. Maybe around 7 p.m. I might have to work late today. For dinner, just make something when we get back. I'll be watching TV till then. All right. Although we both work, I handle all the housework. We initially agreed to share responsibilities, but Tony hardly helps. When he does, it's usually to complain. Argue only leads to more disputes, and he just stops doing chores altogether. It's quicker if I just do everything myself. This has been our routine since our 2nd year of marriage. Then one day, I came home from work to find Tony deep in conversation on the phone. Oh, okay, that's fine with me. Got it, I'll let Anna know. Talk later. He hung up and I asked, who was that? Oh, that was Dad and Mom. Apparently, they got a leak in their house. A leak? Especially during this rainy season? Yeah, and they want to stay with us for a while. Stay with us? You mean move in? Well, we do have the extra room. It's not a big deal. Are you kidding me? I don't want to live with them, especially not those two. I'm not thrilled about living with my in-laws for a reason. They're terrible with money. My father-in-law is obsessed with the lottery despite having a stable job. My mother-in-law works part-time just once a week. They constantly waste money and frequently ask us for financial help. When my step-grandfather was hospitalized, my in-laws didn't even visit. I was the one caring for him and visiting regularly. Anna, I can't thank you enough. Don't mention it. We're family. Here's a week's worth of clothes for you. Always so kind. If my family ever causes any trouble, let me know right away. I'll take care of it. Thank you. I just hope things get better soon. I'll repay your kindness someday. After his release, my step-grandfather, disillusioned with my in-laws, asked them to leave. With nowhere else to go and minimal savings, they ended up renting a cheap apartment. So when Tony refers to the parents' house, he's talking about the apartment my in-laws moved into. Their behavior is so troubling that even their own parent disapproves, which makes me all the more anxious about having them live with us. I'm sorry, but I can't just let them move in all of a sudden, I told Tony firmly. What? I understand they're in trouble, but remember when they asked us for money for living expenses? If they move in with us, they'll depend on us even more. Don't worry, I'll talk to them about it. Talk to them? What exactly will you say? I'll suggest they each cover their own expenses. That should work, right? But you want them to stay in a house with a leak? That's not what I meant. Tony gave me a stern look, and I felt a pang of guilt. I don't want to be cold to my in-laws, but given our past, I'm apprehensive about living together. Still, I can't just abandon them. Reluctantly, I agreed to Tony's plan. Okay, but just until the leak is fixed, right? Yeah, I guess so. So, it's temporary. That's what I said. They're struggling. They'll be here tomorrow. Got it, but make sure you talk to them about handling their own expenses, okay? Tony rolled his eyes and said, Yeah. What's with the attitude? After all the concessions I've made, this is how he responds. All I can do now is hope the repairs get done quickly. The next morning, while it was still early, the doorbell rang. I answered the door to find my parents-in-law standing there. Hi, Anna. Good morning. Anna, it's been a while. Shall we come in? Father-in-law, mother-in-law, I thought you were coming later today. Well, we were going to buy some lottery tickets first, but we spent all our money yesterday. I had planned to use the winnings for a salon visit, but now look at this mess. I couldn't believe it. If they'd spent all their money, just how much had they wasted on lottery tickets? Could they really manage their own expenses? My anxiety was through the roof from the start, and as I feared, my worries soon came true. 2 weeks in, I opened the fridge to find it completely empty. No eggs, bacon, veggies, or even bread. Wait, what happened? All the food was here last night. Mother-in-law, coming down the stairs looking groggy, asked, Morning, Anna. Is breakfast ready? No, because all the food from the fridge is missing. Did you? The fridge, the eggs, the bacon, the bread. I was saving that for breakfast. I couldn't hide my frustration. Mother-in-law's face brightened. Oh, we had that as a midnight snack. You ate everything as a midnight snack. We were hungry. Me, your husband, and Tony. We just cooked up what we found. Without asking me, it's not just about being family. I had plans for that food. Well, I'm hungry now. I've already told you, since you ate everything, there's nothing left for breakfast. So now it's our fault. Maybe if you stocked up better. What? Just get something for breakfast now. I was fuming at mother-in-law's selfish comments. The idea of shopping for breakfast ingredients when I was about to head to work was ridiculous. I quickly got dressed and left for the office without saying a word. Soon after, I started receiving angry text messages from both Tony and mother-in-law. Where are you? Husband and Tony are up. Hey Anna, where did you go? My parents are hungry. You didn't go to work, did you? What about our breakfast? Anna, don't ignore Mom's messages. It's rude. My phone buzzed constantly with a flood of pointless messages. Naturally, I didn't respond and ignored them all. When I returned home, Tony and my in-laws were there, arms crossed and visibly upset. Waiting for me, Tony glared at me and spoke with frustration. Anna, what the hell? What? Mom and Dad were starving because you ate everything. And wasn't the agreement that we all contribute to living expenses? Yeah, I'm paying for everything. Stop making a fuss every time. So you see, it's not just a fuss. This is important, and the living expenses. Well, that was your idea. Enough. I'll cover Mom and Dad's expenses. Just take care of the housework, okay? After shouting at me, Tony stormed off to the living room. My in-laws stood there, smirking at my expense. Why am I being blamed for everything? This whole mess started because of them, not me. From that day forward, their condescending attitudes only seemed to increase. Despite my mounting frustration, I tried to manage each day as best I could. Then 6 months into living with my in-laws, I checked our joint bank account for the first time in a while and was stunned by what I saw. What? What's going on? Nearly $20,000 is missing. The balance was far lower than the last time I checked. There were not only direct withdrawals but also transactions from the debit card that Tony uses. I knew I had to confront him immediately. Tony, what's going on here? Why are you shouting? Just calm down. Calm down? Look at this. Explain. I thrust the bank statement at him. Oh, that. What's the big deal? The big deal? Look, where did $20,000 go? This is the account for your debit card, right? What did you spend it on? It wasn't me. I gave that debit card to Mom and Dad. What? The shocking revelation made everything go dark. I was desperate for answers. Why are they using a card linked to our joint account? What choice did I have? Mom and Dad said they were broke, and I promised to cover their living expenses. Well, I didn't know about that. If you made the promise, Tony, you should have used your own account. Why did it come out of our joint account? Ah, you always blow things out of proportion. What's the big deal? They're family too, right? I was fed up with Tony's blatant misuse of our funds. All the frustration I'd been holding back surged to the surface. I've had enough. Just because they're family doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. That account holds half of my savings too. Out of the $30,000 we had, $20,000 is gone. $5,000 more than your share. Since when did you become so greedy? It's really unattractive. I'm not being greedy, but how long are you planning to let your parents stay with us? It's been 6 months. The roof repair should have been finished by now. Raising my voice, I stared at Tony, trying to process his words. Repairs? Oh, you mean for their place? They decided to give that up. Wait, give it up. They said this place was cozy and didn't want to spend money on repairs, so they ended their apartment lease. Looks like we'll be living together for the foreseeable future. This had to be some sort of joke. I hadn't agreed to this. Who cares what you think? They're family. You're just a daughter-in-law. Sit down, be quiet, and deal with it. A surge of anger, unlike anything I'd ever felt, coursed through me. Is that how they see it? That I'm the villain here? If that's the way they want to play it, I'm done holding back. Determined to take action, I picked up the phone and called someone I needed to come over. A few hours later, Tony's step-grandfather arrived in response to my call. The sight of him visibly unsettled Tony and his parents. Gee, grandfather, what are you doing here? Tony stammered. Before Tony could say more, the step-grandfather spoke firmly. What do you think you're doing? Anna filled me in on everything. Gee, grandfather, why the sudden visit? Anna told you. We haven't done anything. Be quiet, Tony. How could you, as her husband, not protect Anna from this mess? And you too, what kind of parents are you to behave like this? Tony's parents quivered under the step-grandfather's intense gaze. Dad, you don't understand. There's a reason. No, father-in-law. Anna's just making things up. Just making things up. You've been spending Anna's savings without asking. Calm down, Dad. Our apartment had a leak, so wait. Exactly. We only intended to stay here till the repairs were completed. Right. Anna says you left the apartment without informing her. Should I contact the realtor to verify? Dad, wait, it's not as simple as that. We've got a situation. Frustrated, the step-grandfather interrupted. You all need to stop this. You might think you can do whatever you want because I'm not around, but you're mistaken. I'm glad I exchanged contact details with Anna for situations like this. Dad and Anna exchanged contacts. When? Be quiet. Do you understand how generous Anna has been up to now? Yes, we're sorry. Listen, if you've ever caused trouble for Anna again, I won't hesitate to cut ties with all of you and expose your disgrace to the entire family. Do you understand? Yes, we understand. We won't do it again. Please forgive us. Tony's parents, tearful and desperate, pleaded for mercy as the step-grandfather made his demands clear. You have 1 month to repay every cent of Anna's money. If not, I'll sever all ties, and Tony, from now on, I'll be living here with you. Any objections? Live here with you? Got a problem with that, Tony? The step-grandfather pressed. No, not at all. Tony and his parents were visibly shaken by the step-grandfather's words. Afterward, the step-grandfather had Tony's parents removed and took on the role of guardian, moving into our home. Meanwhile, Tony's parents rented a cheaper apartment and are now working hard to repay the money they owe me. The father-in-law can no longer indulge in his lottery fantasies, and the mother-in-law has had to increase her part-time work to 5 days a week. Without the luxury of free spending, they are clearly struggling. Since the step-grandfather moved in, Tony has stopped making demeaning remarks toward me entirely. If Tony even tries to complain, the step-grandfather is quick to step in. Tony, don't act superior in front of Anna. Grandfather, that's not what I meant. I heard you talking back to Anna. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. If you dare repeat that behavior, you'll face the same consequences as those other two. Please just spare me. From that point on, Tony began helping with household chores, which significantly eased my workload. Thanks to his increased contribution, my stress levels decreased, allowing me to focus more on my job. Step-grandfather, I can't thank you enough. It's nothing, the step-grandfather said with a wave of his hand. Remember when I was hospitalized 5 years ago? You were the only one who came to visit. It meant a lot, especially since you had just gotten married. It was the right thing to do as family, I replied. That's how I feel too. I just wanted to help my troubled family. I'm deeply grateful to the step-grandfather for rescuing me from this situation. I hope to support him in